What?
गुड इवनिंग एंड वेलकम टू गनर शॉट। गनर शॉट में आप सबका स्वागत है। आज हम एक असेसमेंट लेंगे, विल टेक अ स्टॉक of China's defense and aerospace capability with General Rajiv Narayanan. At the outset, let me welcome him. Rajiv, welcome back to Gunner Shot once again. And how
Thank you.
things, and today we're going to discuss a very, very, very interesting thing called China's defense and aerospace capability as a macro level. Your initial views, and then we'll take off.
Sir, at the outset, thank you. It's been a little while. It's an honor to be on your platform, sir. My view is Xi Jinping is a confused man. He's absolutely confused man. Why do I say so? When you look at the basic strategy which was enunciated way back in '85 by Deng Xiaoping of war zone campaign, that has not changed. So I'm not talking of the initial phase, no war, no peace, where they will continue to degrade your CNP. Actual combat when it starts. The first phase is EFSA, Elite Force and Sharp Arms, which entails the use of SSF and the rocket force. And what has he degraded today? Exactly these two. He needs to start the war. And I cannot find a more confused man than him. And as we progress in the discussion, it will become clear that where the problem lies. And when I look at it at a macro level, everything finally homes on to Xi Jinping. Emperor Xi and his follies and foibles, and everyone else around him really scared to bell the cat.
Yeah.
Who will tell him that what he wants maybe is not achievable?
Okay. Yeah, I think you made very important points. Kyunki, if you look at PLA is the only army, right, which has a rocket force as a separate arm. There's no other, the PLA RF. And that is supposed to win you battles. And that is not sharp enough, right? And it represents a complete, confusion at the highest level. Okay. Like what you said, what was the war zone campaign initially and to what they are now practicing is completely two different things. And if you look at the doctrines of PLA, just to highlight what you said, doctrines of PLA, the PLA doctrine lays a lot of stress on intelligentization and information and all that, and very little, focus on how to use the PLA, RF, the rocket force, right? So there's a dissonance there, and then the second dissonance, what you said, Xi Jinping has broken the continuity of the war zone concept completely. And why is this happening? Is a different story. Like you said, it is Xi Jinping's way of thinking and fighting and all that. But it is reflected in their overall capability. And that is what I would like you to go through with it, because you made a
Yes.
small presentation. And then we'll discuss back based on what we're going to talk. And for all viewers, we must say why we have chosen this subject. That's something which I want to put across. Everyone thinks that the PLA is a very strong force and one of the strongest armies and all that. What we're going to highlight today puts a big question mark on all those. Right? And the sources for this are either international in nature or Chinese. They are not self-created and they are backed by facts And these are published facts and recognized facts, right? And that's what General Narayanan is going to put across. And then we'll get back to a couple of points which we'll make at the end of the day.
So,
We can start whenever you want. You want
Hus,
the slides
we
on?
can start these slides.
Okay, right.
We'll assess what is its potential. It's quite confusing at the moment, indicating all points are indicating that its capabilities are not what it's touted to be. Next slides. Now, current status is very negative. Failure of missiles. Suspect nuclear submarine. We know what happened when the BRICS event was going on in South Africa. Very poor standard of defense equipment and MRO cover, including those sold abroad. Because all concentration has been to make more and more platforms, the same OEM is supposed to give you the spares for the maintenance, repair, and overhaul, which is not existing. You sacked the complete leadership of Rocket Force. You not only removed last year the leadership of SSF, you've restructured it into 3 separate arms. And you sacked 2 defense ministers of late. You sacked the aerospace industry leaders who are making all these platforms for you. Facing the impact today of the chip wars with the US and West, because you want to modernize and get in the new emerging and evolving technologies, you don't have chips equivalent capability. The 7 nanometer, 3 nanometer is not there. All that hype of what he said that we have made the 7 nanometer, when the phones came out, even their own people were very angry that this is ridiculous, this is nothing but. And the most telling case was last year, sometime in November, PLA took out an op-ed in PLA Daily. In PLA Daily. PLA
Yeah.
Daily is controlled by the CMC. And the crux of the op-ed was, we are not yet ready for war. And this was at the time when Xi Jinping had hyped up everything and that he are going to attack Taiwan and we are going
Taiwan.
to. So let us look at step by step. Next.
Yeah, before you go to that, I want to highlight 2 things in this which you actually brought out. The first is, this op-ed which says that they're not yet ready for war. And this was 6 months back. Okay, 6, 7 months back. Now, from then to now, what has happened? What has changed further? One is you've broken up the SSF completely, okay, which is a major reorg. And then you sacked the leadership. So you first said that you're not prepared for war. Then you sack your leadership, and then you sack your organization or you change your organization. So that puts a whole lot of focus on what the negative status of PLA is. And that is important, right? And yeah, should we go to the next slide?
Sir. So when you look at April 2022, when Nancy Pelosi came, immediately day after the visit, 11 Dongfeng 15 missiles were fired. The Dongfeng 15, which is actually a short range, about 750, 800 kilometers is the range, to threaten it. But lo and behold, 5 of them didn't go towards Taiwan. They went towards Japan and landed at in the EEZ of Okinawa, creating a diplomatic spat between Japan and. A couple of months late, about back, there was again, I think they must have gone for recalibrating their Dong 15 missiles. And from the East Coast, they were doing a test firing of Dongfeng missile, which was supposed to go into their North Sea. And lo and behold, that missile went and landed just west of Beijing. I don't know whether it fell in a developed area, whether it fell in a residential area, where it fell. The reports did not cover what. But just imagine, and again there is silence. You don't know about Dongfeng 15, whether it's going to work or not. And that is your major threat to the Indian forces, is Dongfeng 15. if and when the war starts. Latest अभी क्या हुआ 29 जून में, their famous space launch rocket Tiangong 3, the test launch किया उसको. Within couple of minutes, it just broke apart and fell down from short of its launch pad, and there was a huge roaring fire in the forest out there. You go back again last year, the famous report from which came out from the US of water-filled missiles of the rocket force and the poor CEP. And they have also taken out that the anti-ship DF-21B is overhyped and may give mathematical calculations why it will never hit. And that it is overhyped, that it is anti-ship and anti-ship. Coupled with that were reports which came out of dysfunctional silos, the new 300 odd silos that he is making, that the lid does not open properly. So that means all those old DF-5 missiles which the reports say he was planning to place out there, you can't place them out there. And both these reports were clubbed with the leaking of a lot of intelligence, which that ambassador in the US got sacked, though under the garb that he had an affair with some girl and he had fathered a child. But this could be more the case that he had leaked the information where every detail of the rocket force, their location, what weapons they have, how many launchers they have, what are their, like we called those military numbers, unit numbers, everything was given. And it is presumed that it is all these which led to the sacking of the rocket force leadership. But was this also that the SSF, which was supposed to control the communications and keep a track, is that the reason why they also broke apart? Because you have cyber, you have information, you have satellite information, you make it separate. But strategic support force is supposed to provide strategic communication to the theater commands with these assets, rocket force and others. Now, who's providing the communication? Who's overall in charge of the media, which is common to all the three? And latest is two defense ministers now. Of course, they had been taken out they were under investigation. Now, formally, in the third plenum, they have been sacked, removed, thrown out from the
Communist Party itself.
The Wei Fenghe, who was the earlier rocket force commander and made the defense minister, and Liu Shangfu, who actually is the, you could say, the protege of his blood brother, Shang Yujia. Shang Yujia, in between, they had said he is cooperating. He has always been part of the Armament Development Directorate. He is the one, when the restructuring was done in 2016, established the Equipment Directorate when all the four were broken apart into 15, and established the Equipment Directorate. Wherever he had been, Li Shangfu has always been there with him, and he has handpicked him and brought here. So if Li Shangfu is under a cloud for corruption or whatever, where does that leave Zhang Yujia, who's supposed to be his blood brother, in the sense, though he's elder to him, that when their fathers were purged together, he was his only friend at that time. All the others had broken friendship, because if somebody had become friends, then the parents felt that their fathers would also get purged. So the missiles now have come into a big question mark. And my understanding has always been, it is all well on paper for Xi Jinping and the PRC to gloat that the world makes X number of platforms for any arm or service in a year, and we make 3 to 4 times that. I will explain it in the classic case of their Type 002 aircraft carrier, Shandong earlier. The faster you make, the more corners you cut,
Cut.
because
Yeah.
there are certain technical issues where you can't. Like if you're making something concrete, you need 15 days for the concrete to settle with
Second.
daily watering. Otherwise, it will be brittle. It won't be hard. Now, if you cut corners and say within 7.5 days, I have made the concrete, it will last only that long.
That
You're
long. Yeah.
right. Next.
Yeah, before you go, a few things which I want to put across, which from your slides only, that my influences. You look at, after all, both of us are in the business of aerospace in IIT, and we understand the technologies behind it. Missiles going awry during Nancy Pelosi's visit. The DF-15 missile test, which took off somewhere and landed in the outskirts of Beijing, and then this Tiangong rocket again going haywire, it indicates that their propulsion systems are completely awry. Their propulsion technology is big question mark.
Essentially, to the common man, I'll explain that the basic propulsion system for all this stays the same. To increase the range, you may have stage 1, stage 2, stage 3.
Yeah.
Basic propulsion system remains the same.
The same.
And the software decides to what use you are going to employ, whether the rocket is being used for launching something to space, or it is a missile which is going to carry a warhead to strike. The propulsion system remains the same. Now here the propulsion system itself is coming into a question mark. And number two, the whole precision system, when you're making long range, there has to be a very accurate method of locating yourself in 4 dimensions: X, Y, Z, and time. X, Y, Z, and time. Time is very critical, because if time goes wrong, then maybe you will hit the missile at a wrong time, at a wrong place. This shows that the grid which they changed,
is also
2009 onwards, they have started making their own grid from WGS 84, which is the international standard on all the GPS. That calculation is absolutely wonky. So certain missiles go off to certain places. You really don't know. So when you're launching the missile, everybody will be having their fingers on their hands, legs, toes, everything crossed. Even their legs crossed and hands crossed. God knows where it will go.
Yeah, and iska jo praman hai, there's the first two. When missiles don't go to your intended place, and when missiles, all over, there are too many actual physical occurrences where you start saying, okay, this could have happened only because of this, right? And the second major point which you brought out, which I want to highlight to everyone, is regarding the leadership. What General Narayanan has highlighted here. 2 defense ministers consecutively have been sacked permanently now. And those are the guys who made the rocket force what they are. Okay, at least supposed to have. And the third guy, Wang Yujia, right? Wang Yujia and Li Shangfu were the 2 vice chairmen of the CMC. And they are now sacked or under cloud. So just think that the CMC is today a one-man show by Xi Jinping, who is taking the wrong bets completely on technology.
He has one more person, Wang Xia, but won't he also be scared?
He will. He can't take. So
obviously, sir, वो तो डरेगा कि यार मैं कुछ बोल दूं जब ये निकल गए तो मैं किस खेत की मूली हूं.
Yeah. So the point is that this CMC today, I won't call it dysfunctional. I would call it misfunctional. Okay, it will not. It is incapable today of taking the right decisions at the right time. So there is a danger in this, and the danger is that due to the incapability of being able to take the right decision, they might take a rash decision, and this is something which we need to
understand. So at every
understand. Yeah.
level, we are always taught, like in our army also, the art of military decision making,
Yes.
wherein the staff officers do all that, give out all the pros and cons. The commander listens to everything. He has also read what all has happened, and then after that he comes and arrives at his decision and makes a cogent decision based on all the pros and cons, all that have understood. यहाँ कौन बताएगा उसको pros and cons?
Yeah. I think so. I think this is the major point which people have to understand,
So
that it is not the
will
dysfunctionality is not of the equipment alone, the dysfunctionality is of the system as a whole. Right. So I'll go to the next slide of yours. Yeah.
yes, no, submarine तो वो सिंक हो गया था, न्यूक्लियर सबमरीन. Till date they have not accepted, though unke when you track their X, you get to know that 51 people died, except for one poor chap who was lucky, because he was sent out through the torpedo tube to go out and see what has happened
What is happening? And he survived.
and go up. If you find a problem, go up to the nearest ship to ask for help. He went there, but by the time they came, they were all dead. And yet till today they have not accepted. Now the issues that are coming out of the defense industry, and I'll relate it directly to our neighbor next door because it impacts us directly. There is a very poor MRO cover. MRO means maintenance, repair, and overhaul. Weapons equipment focuses more and more on newer platforms, less on sustenance of the fleet. So आप नए प्लेटफॉर्म्स बनाते जाओ, आप ग्लोट करोगे कि US can make only 3 ships or 4 ships in a year, I make 10. The uh, people have to understand that US is not some andi-fundy country. If it is taking able to make 3 or 4 big naval ships in a year, there has to be some technical
Logic.
timelines which need to be followed. If you're going to more than double that and then say I make 10, how many corners are you cutting? China is no USA. China is no USA. So how many corners are you cutting? Now, iska direct example I will give from Pakistan. When we brought in the T-90, this chap jumped to the Chinese and they brought in their Al-Khalid tanks. Sorry, T-72s we had brought in. They brought in their Al-Khalid tanks. The new T-72s we had brought, which came with the laser rangefinder. The first one was with the stereoscopic rangefinder, laser rangefinder. Al-Khalid. Now, Al-Khalid, everybody knew, was a dud tank. Type 90, which the PLA had said no, and he tried to palm it off to the Saudis. So in their name, king's name, they called it Al-Khalid. As we went and brought in T-90 and our armored corps was expanding, he was feeling the pinch. So what did he do? Did he make more Al-Khalids, whom they kept saying is the world's best tank, best tank? No. He went to Poland and bought over 200 refurbished T-55 tanks. And he still has the link from Poland for getting the space, from Poland and Czech Republic to get the space for. That is how he's sustaining. If Al-Khalid was so darn good, he would have bought that. He got the first lot of the WZ, their ICVs. वो वैसे ही है. To make up for the ICVs, since our mechanized infantry was increasing, he wanted to make his armored infantry battalion. He went to Czech Republic and Romania and bought old refurbished M113s. Most of his JF-17s are grounded. We'll come to that later.
Yeah.
We'll go to that slide. So, because so much of platforms are coming in, there is very poor absorption of technology in the soldiers, because he doesn't have trainers to train them. That is why he is poaching from the West and trying to get trainers to train his people. Absorption of technology is not there. So वही है, in their push to meet their targets and keep Emperor Xi happy, they keep cutting corners. Who's going to tell them? The most brilliant case, Pakistan का भी मत देखो. If their number 2 aircraft carrier, which I had mentioned about, Shandong, 2013 the keel was laid. Normally takes about 8 to 10 years to make your full aircraft carrier fully operational. 6 years, 2019, handed over. जिस दिन से हैंड ओवर हुआ है, जहां पे बना था डालियान में, थोड़ी देर के लिए निकलता है और डालियान शिपयार्ड में ही रिफिट अपग्रेड रिपेयर में रहता है. तब से it came out once earlier for a trip, went back, came out last year for that supposed blockade of Taiwan because Tsai Ing-wen had gone to the USA. वो किया 3 दिन, 72 hours, back in डालिया. ये हालत है इसके नंबर 2. और नंबर 3 का बोलता मैंने कील डाल दिया, अभी ट्रायल कर रहा हूं. वो बीच में उसके तो रिपोर्ट्स भी आए थे where the deck had completely torn apart. I really don't know where he is. JF-17 का क्या प्रॉब्लम है? बिगेस्ट प्रॉब्लम, Russia refused to give him the engines. They are using theirs. It is a guzzler, so it's a very short fuel time. Flight time बहुत कम है. टारगेटिंग सिस्टम बिल्कुल जिंक्स्ड है. वो मिसाइल वाला ही डाला होगा, so it is inaccurate. Radars are unreliable. वो तो हमने देख लिया जब हमारा मिसफायर करके वो हमारा ये फायर हो गया था ब्रह्मोस एयरफोर्स से. उनको तो पता लगा जब गिरा नीचे. उसके पहले तो पता ही नहीं लगा था कि भाई साहब ये हो गया. अनरिलायबल है. लिमिटेड कैरिंग कैपेसिटी. It cannot lift up that much of load because it is totally underpowered. So he has to always make a fine balance between fuel and weapon load. मेंटेनेंस का तो प्रॉब्लम है, स्पेयर्स आता नहीं है वहां से. मेन कंप्यूटर्स ही कांट रिलाई ऑन, इट हैज टू गो मैनुअल. और इक्विपमेंट उसका फेल होता रहता है. वहां से चाइना से कुछ नहीं आ रहा है बिकॉज चाइना इज बिजी वांटिंग टू अपग्रेड हिज ओन फ्लीट. So where is what happens to Pak military now? This would be also one of the reasons in his calculus why he has left China and gone into the lap of
USA again.
again. कि भाई साहब बचा लो मेरे को.
बचा लो. और ये पिछले 3 साल से नहीं पिछले 3 साल से जा रहा है कि भाई मेरे को ले लो वापस
ले लो.
And the Praman is that today infantry, the American and the Pakistani infantry are carrying out a 2-week training capsule in Pakistan, at 2 different locations. Okay, yeah.
तो ये हालत है कि अरे there have been so many reports of equipment sent to various places have all gone defunct.
Yeah, Bangladesh has a problem. Nigeria has a problem with JF-17s. Bangladesh has a problem with the submarines. And anywhere else, and many other places.
To find that their equipment. When I was researching, and I mentioned it in the book also, like we said, sir, sustenance. PLAF. I'll give the example of PLAF because that report came out about PLAF. We have a separate MRO sustenance channel for the rotables and everything, separate depot from where you place your demand and everything comes. They have nothing. Most of their new generation fighters which they are giving to their brigades, air brigades, if the fighting squadron has 12, they give them 16 aircrafts, and you use 12 and the other 4 are given for cannibalization. How can you fight wars with cannibalization? You cannot fight wars. So this is the problem which I was saying, the point 3 which I had made, that Xi Jinping has given a target. Nobody has sat down to assess that are those targets practically achievable or not. Nobody is ready to go and bell the cat and tell she, because you don't know what will happen to you and your extended family.
Yeah.
So they are busy cutting corners. Let him be happy, because I feel they are very clear that in this coming decade or two, there's going to be no war. They feel that there is going to be no war. My time is over. I will push away.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they would have made all the money and and had their now uh, bought houses and other things in Australia or Canada or someplace and just run away out there. Having learned the lesson of Jack Ma and all these people,
Yeah.
Li Shangfu couldn't do anything. Wei Fanghe had a chance to go away. He didn't go. I'm thinking now I feel the others, moment they finish their tenure, are just going to push off
Yeah.
to another country and not stay back.
Yep. And it is what you're saying is underlined by the fact the latest rise in China is of Hawala banks, incidentally.
बिल्कुल
The the
बिल्कुल
Hawala system is
बिकॉज नॉर्मल सिस्टम तो बंद कर दिया है, तो
बंद कर
हवाला
दिया
सिस्टम तो चाहिए पैसा वहां भेजने के लिए.
चाहिए. Yeah. Right. So, and
And
actually
they
this
may
also
not buy it in their names, they might buy it in their kids' names.
kids' names, naturally. And the second thing of this, an extension of this is today there's a lot Chinese experts and the government people, they can't travel abroad. Their children also are not being allowed to travel
Allowed
abroad.
to go.
That's all being controlled. So you're looking at one thing leading to the other. It is just not the industry which is at stake. I think the whole system is at stake. Okay. And this also brings me to one more point, maybe we could comment before we go further, is that in such kind of conditions, what is this business of Sino-Pak collusion which can take place? What's the level which can take place?
I don't
Because
know. That's why
Pakistan is jumping
that
ship.
last point, whether Pak military.
Why?
Pak military will be shit scared at this time, because F-16 तो वैसे ही डब्बा हो गया है,
डब्बा हो
और
गया.
जो मिला उसको वही डब्बा था, नया जो मिला
Hmm.
JF-17 तो वो भी डब्बा है. तो लड़ेगा तो किसके साथ लड़ेगा, क्या लेके लड़ेगा? What will
Yeah.
he fight with? How will
So
he sustain himself?
how will he sustain himself? So and what General Narayanan said earlier, that look, Pakistan has run away, is actually in a way running away from China and running back into the American lap. So in such kind of a condition, this business of what we talk of two-front war and all that are all,
So his
dead and gone.
concentration is totally on the Western front
Western
today.
side. Yeah. It's not only, I mean, I'll put it this way, Rajiv. It, Pakistan is now concentrated completely on the Western front. China is completely concentrated on the Philippines front,
बिल्कुल.
and his thing is outward. And with whatever he has done, Taiwan and Japan have also got armed themselves. And the new developments which are happening in the Korean Peninsula, his fixation is that side and not this side, right?
And so only threat that I see more and more coming are use of non-state actors.
Yes, non-state actors and hybrid warfare is what we need
That is
to
what will come from
need
both sides.
both sides. Yeah. Okay.
So
And yeah.
basic points ये है. Has the reality come to bite Xi? And that is why he tried to make a statement. A rabid warmonger who kept telling he'll attack Taiwan and wanting to crush it, now shifting goalposts, trying to blame USA, stating that it is USA which is pushing PRC to attack Taiwan. Or is it a smokescreen he wants to put to gain some time? Because you may blame anybody, but you, man, at every stage, he was the one who was saying, everything was on the table. I will attack you. I will crush you. Anybody not looking at one China policy will crush you, will defeat you. Now, what has happened? Has the reality come to bite you? That all this was hogwash. Now, does it mean if he can't go that side, will he try to come on the LAC? Well, good luck to him if he tries.
Yeah.
Or will he lash out further against the shadows within? जितने थे सबको तो साइडलाइन कर दिया, और कितने shadows बचे हैं तुम्हारे CPC में? How the mighty have fallen. कहाँ G2 की बात कर रहा था और कहाँ अपने आप को अब बोलता है I'm part of developed South. From where to where the collapsing dream. And how long will the CPC accept this? Because this is the descent of his PRC, not just into chaos, it is going into nothingness. Because this will depend on his future course of action. Karega kya wo? And economically, you have pointed out so many times in your talks yourself, he is in total shambles.
Yeah.
And
On that, I have no doubt.
look at the fronts that he has opened. Can he sustain this deployment along the LAC and whatever actions he is doing along his eastern seaboard? How long can he economically sustain that?
Yeah.
So
Actually, if you look at it,
where is he taking? When will CPC decide that enough is enough and purge him? Today, I read the report that he is already very angry with the handpicked PM that he brought, Li Qiang.
Li Qiang,
Because in
yes.
the plenum, he gave the reality of the economy. Where they are. अब उसके
Not only
हैंडपिक बंदों को ही उठा उठा के
not only
निकाल रहा है.
that, the number of purges which are going on in China are actually unprecedented. In the first 6 months of this year, he's carried out more purges than she carried out ever.
So I will add to that, when the news comes that he's purged X, it is not just X which gets purged.
He's
X
purged.
के साथ उसका जो इमीडिएट पर्सनल स्टाफ होता है, उसके स्टाफ ऑफिसर्स जो हैंडपिक्ड आए हुए हैं, उनके फैमिलीज होते हैं, एक्सटेंडेड फैमिलीज होते हैं, everybody gets impacted. So just imagine, and there were reports which came out on the social media, X में ही आया था, where veterans have come out and surrounded the Beijing headquarters, that PLA headquarters, that they're not getting any of their pension.
Pensions, yes.
जो उनको पेंशन लंप सम में मिलता था, this man in around 2020 said you will not get lump sum, you will get monthly.
And that also they're
not getting.
Yeah.
So this tells you the condition of the economy.
It tells you the condition of China overall. Overall.
And poor people have come from all over the states and come there to PLA ki bhaiya kya hai? The previous system was better, and he tried to cover up the previous system कि पैसे नहीं थे तो monthly देंगे, अब monthly भी नहीं आ रहे. अभी वो कह रहे हैं monthly जो देंगे they will get only 50%.
Yeah. I think overall, when you look at China, what emerges is the same things which we keep talking of, that the PLA doesn't have the manpower to undertake any major operation. They don't have the leadership to undertake any operation, right? They don't have the equipment which is reliable to see you through a war. Their organizations are completely changing. Every second day, Xi Jinping breaks an organization and recreates a new one, which means that it cannot fight, because ultimately no new organization immediately goes into a fight.
When you create a new organization, it takes time to stabilize. For people to understand. And others to understand कि अच्छा इसको इस तरह से करना है. वो समझ में आने से पहले ही आप
वो तो बंद कर दे तो. And of course, the last problem is every day the role of the PLA itself keeps changing. इसने करना क्या? Okay. So as a result,
अंदाजा लगा लो सर, you want them to fight in high altitude and super high altitude. You have no concept of acclimatization. You're sending them with oxygen bottles. And then when they come down, you're proudly showing a video on their, I was watching it on their CNN, China Mill
CGTN.
No, sir, China Mill military website.
Okay, yeah.
They are showing that once the people come after the patrol, they come back with their oxygen cylinders. They are kept in an oxygen room with proper oxygen mask, and the doctor comes and checks them, and then they declared fit, and then they go. That we are taking care of our soldiers. And a couple of days later in X, I was watching, these people were aghast, the Chinese, where they show video shots of our people doing yoga, playing cricket, playing volleyball.
Hmm.
And these people, he says, they are doing it at high altitude and doing all this. Our people going with oxygen bottle and staying and then coming down and staying in pressurized tents and God knows what all. How do you fight with these people who are used to fighting in high altitude? Now, this is the question the common man in China is asking.
Hmm.
How do you
More than
fight these
that,
people in high
yeah.
altitude who are used to high altitude with our people who are not used to it and who need oxygen bottles to survive?
And that to 5,000 miles away.
Yes. And because they are most worried, one bullet in the oxygen bottle, there'll be nothing left of the man.
Nothing left. And the chances of a bullet hitting an oxygen bottle are higher for the
Very
simple
high.
reason it's exposed, right?
Very high.
And that's
So
where it is. So,
it's
I
a very
think we put a
confused sort of a thing that Xi Jinping, he doesn't know. Firstly, let us be clear. All those who have been with him have always said in all the reports that I've read that he was a very average to below average student.
yes,
Other only thing positive about him is once he is very obstinate. Once he puts a mind and says कि मैंने ऐसा करना है, come
वो
hell or
करेगा,
high water, whether he is going to sink or drown, he will do that.
do it.
He will not listen to anybody. And you can see it clearly what has happened to the PLA.
I think that's where we need to leave it today with the message to everyone that the PLA is not what it is made out on paper. There are a lot of holes. Whether you take equipment, you take manpower, you take their organizations, you take their way of thinking and their way of fighting. We shouldn't to get too worried about the PLA in the long run. We now have a good handle of what PLA is all about. The importance of why we are talking all this is this. If you go back in time in 2020, we were not sure of what the PLA was. People in India had not studied PLA the way it should be studied. Today, things have changed. Over the past 4 years, I generally see a lot of people have a lot of knowledge about the PLA and increased knowledge about China. The Indian Army and the Indian Armed Forces institutionally have learned more. You learn more by contact, and that contact came from Eastern Ladakh, Doklam, what happened in Yangtze. Now we have very got a clear idea of what the PLA capability and the culpability is. More about the culpability, and that is why you see uh, India, which is more strategically confident. And for the simple thing that if Prime Minister Modi could show two fingers to Xi Jinping at the by not even looking at the HCO summit and not even doing a video address out there. This was requested by the Kazakh president, and he didn't, Prime Minister didn't have time for that. Indicates the kind of confidence which India has to develop today as a whole. I think this is what I had to summarize. If you have anything else to
Yeah,
summarize, or otherwise
I'll
I'll take a
just
few
add to the
questions.
point
Yeah,
that you said how you get to know from contact. I won't give my source. You remember, sir, post Galwan, then when it got activated, we went up the what was that ridge line?
Kailash range.
Kailash range. We beat them to it. They were slow. It is on record
Yeah,
that the CMC through the Xi Jinping, through the Western Theatre Commander, gave a direct order to that combined arms brigade commander to go up the Kailash range and evict the
Indians.
Indians from there. And that chap said that this man doesn't know whom we are facing.
Hmm.
I refuse to go on a suicide mission, his words. Now, what has happened to him thereafter, I
We
don't
don't
know.
know.
Because these didn't come out in public. This has come from the sources within the military. I won't give names. Who said, sir, this is the fear that those people have had post Galwan. That this is not some riffraff that you're up against. They will thrash the daylights out of you. And after that, they learnt their lesson in Yangtze again. And Subsequent to that, you find सन्नाटा है.
अब सन्नाटा है, yeah, that's the
It's only
main thing.
पीछे से शोर शराबा है, एलएसी पे सन्नाटा है, डरे पड़े हैं.
And no, the another thing which people normally miss out, I want to just underline what you're saying. PLA makes big noises against Philippines, Taiwan, and Japan and all. It stopped making noises against India. You have to totally, right? And I think that is something which people have to understand. And I think with this, we'll take a few questions and we'll, right? Mm. Okay. A lot of talk on Agniveer and all will not
That's out of syllabus.
out of
For this
syllabus.
talk.
Yeah. He says, for our benefit, please take up scenarios. Where do you think China will attack? And how do you think India will respond? I don't know whether they'll attack at all. Your views, Rajiv.
I'll just tell you, RKG, let me explain. Total group armies available. I'll look at group armies because high altitude mein chalo, air and all can give them support. Ultimately, it is the boots which have to go there and secure the heights. So we look at group armies. Total 13 है. 3 ईस्टर्न थिएटर कमांड में है, 3 नदर्न में है, 3 सेंट्रल में. सदर्न कमांड में 2 है, हमारे विरुद्ध 2. हर एक ग्रुप आर्मी में 6 कंबाइंड आर्म्स ब्रिगेड फाइटिंग के लिए. बाकी एडी आरटी वो सब हैं, उनको छोड़ दो. लड़ाई लड़ने के लिए 6 कंबाइंड आर्म्स ब्रिगेड. इसके अलावा तिब्बत में 3 कंबाइंड आर्म्स ब्रिगेड थे और सिंचियांग में नॉर्थ उरुमची में 2 थे और साउथ होतान काशगर में 2 थे. उरुमची के 2 तो डिप्लॉयड हैं since 2008-2009 in running the re-education camps, तो वो तो बुक्ड है. गलवान के बाद ये 2 जो काशगर और होतान में थे, they have got deployed in लद्दाख. तो ये खत्म हो गया. जब हमने पूरा एलएसी एक्टिवेट किया तो 3 जो तिब्बत में 3 जो थे वो तो लग गए. उसके अलावा चांगदू में जो 77 ग्रुप आर्मी था, वहां से 3 निकाल के इसने डाले. और फिर क्या किया हमने, उत्तर भारत एरिया को कोर बना दिया, उसको ट्रूप्स दे दिए. तो अब उसको डर लग गया कि यार यहाँ तो पूरा कोर आ गया है आपका. तो जो बचा था उसका 3 ग्रुप आर्मी वो भी ले आ गया, 3 कंबाइंड आर्म्स ब्रिगेड वो भी ले आया एलएसी. अभी इसके पास हमारे पूरे जो 4000 कुछ किलोमीटर के एलएसी है, लड़ाई इंडिया में ले जाने के लिए 1 ग्रुप आर्मी है फुल स्टॉप. क्यों? क्योंकि उसने पूरा ईस्टर्न सीबोर्ड तो एक्टिवेट कर दिया है. तो सदर्न ईस्टर्न के 3 और नदर्न का 1 तो रहेगा ही रहेगा. 1 नीचे की तरफ है, 2 ऊपर हैं इसके नदर्न में. 2 ऊपर वाले हैं वो तो रशिया से पंगा ले लिया है. जो नया मैप बनाया उसमें जो बल्शोई उसूर्स्काया आइलैंड था वो पूरा अपना दिखा दिया. हालांकि ट्रीटी वगैरह साइन था, तो उसको डर लगा हुआ है कि रशिया कुछ कर देगा. सेंट्रल थिएटर कमांड में से 3, 1 तो बीजिंग वाला है, वो तो निकाल नहीं सकता. बचे 2. अब 2 में उसको समस्या है कि भाई साहब दोनों भारत की तरफ भेजूं या मेरे को ईस्टर्न थिएटर में कुछ हो जाएगा या एक यहां पे रखूं, कब निकालेगा. एक से क्या करेगा. आपके पास क्या है, आपके पास 4 स्ट्राइक कोर है. पाकिस्तान की ये हालत है कि अगर मैं 1 भी छोड़ दूं तो 3 आपके पास है, उसके पास 1 है. 1 से क्या, बड़ी मुश्किल से 1 रिजलाइन भी पूरा कैप्चर नहीं कर पाएगा वो, तो जब लड़ाई आएगी तो 3 से आप कोई क्रिटिकल एरिया उसका जरूर कब्जा कर सकते हो, कट ऑफ कर सकते हो. कोई जो आगे आया उसको पीछे से कट ऑफ करके उसके पूरे सोल्जर्स को प्रिजनर ऑफ वॉर बना सकते हो. किधर लड़ने आएगा वो, किस जगह.
Not come.
इसीलिए मैंने बोला कि अगर वो एलएसी में आता तो गुड लक टू हिम.
Good luck to him. That's all.
जाएगा अच्छी तरह से.
Yeah. He says Chinese failures also need to be discussed alongside their successes.
Last success they had was in 62.
Mm.
उसके बाद कोई
After that, it's
सक्सेस
only
नहीं है
failures.
उसका, बिकॉज आई एम नॉट टॉकिंग ऑफ एनी अदर डिप्लोमेटिक सक्सेस और ना, मैं तो फौजी हूँ। 62 में हुआ था उसको, उसके बाद 67 में पिटा है हमसे, 87 ही ब्लिंक्ड फर्स्ट, 79 में तो बहुत बुरी तरह से रगड़ा गया था। क्या सक्सेस मिला उसको, आप बता दो।
So he's got no. That's what people have to understand. We should get out of that 62 mentality. 62 was, 62.
Long
After
gone,
that,
and that was for some, because of somebody else's failures,
yeah,
not of the man on ground.
okay. While not discounting the combat capability of the enemy, the fight appears to be between Z and Mao on one hand, and Z may as well be a deep state agent on the other. Your views?
Xi and Mao में नहीं है, he wants to see, I'm sure as a boy, young boy, when they got purged, to protect his sisters, his mother disowned his father, ठीक है? And the mother moved away with the sisters and disowned his father. As a young kid, do you realize the psychological impact on his mind? And suddenly, from a position where everybody looked up to his dad and everybody was running to be his friends, he became friendless. थू थू करते थे लड़के इसके ऊपर when they were sent back into the rural area to stay there. The only friend he had was Changyu Jia, जो वाइस चेयरमैन है CMC में, whose father had also been purged and who was about 2-3 years elder to him. So he was more like an elder brother. He's gone through that psychological trauma. When you go through such psychological trauma, there is two things you will do. Either you will say never again and I will not put others to that, or you will say I will be better, a bigger B than him. Unfortunately, he's taken to the other path, that I am bigger than Mao. In that bit, he is destroying China. And Jen Shankar was the first one who started this, that he is the Imran Khan of China.
Oh, yes.
A deep state agent, do you think deep state will keep him as an agent? He may have been earlier, shayad, I don't know, but will he keep him
But
today
no more.
in the way where China is going? सवाल ही नहीं पैदा होता है.
Okay. Now he says General Shukla on defensive offensive states that Chinese military might is exponential.
Yeah, exponential in which direction? I would
Yeah,
say
that's the point.
नीचे की तरफ.
Look, let me put it across. See, General Shukla has his own viewpoint on many issues. Okay. And uh, we don't. We don't. Because when you look at the Chinese military capability through, logically and through facts on ground, you find that it's a very brittle military. It's a huge military, which is very brittle. And the evidence is that every time it has come up against tough opposition, it has backtracked. Right? You see today that look, Philippines is a country which has got hardly any military. It is not militarily strong. Even against that country, it is not. It is not taking the steps which a superpower otherwise takes. It is not. It is फूंक फूंक के चल रहा है even against Philippines. डर रहा है वहां कुछ करे क्योंकि उल्टा पड़ सकता है. So you have to understand the Chinese military in its entirety, not on what it proclaims and not on what others proclaim about it, who are paid agents of the Chinese. Your views on this? Otherwise,
If you look at platforms, all he has, how many tanks he has, what artillery he has, what air force he has, what navy he has, you will feel that oh, and the add-ons that he's putting, like I said, he has given targets and he keeps adding on. You will feel that he is going in strength exponentially. Weapons don't win you war. It's man behind the
Man, yeah.
weapon that kills you. If that man is found wanting, you have a problem. And you have an exponential problem if that equipment is also found wanting. That is what is happening. That you have platforms after platforms, but it
But
is not
they don't
performing.
work.
And Napoleon had made this big statement that army marches on its stomach. Now, people always relate it that stomach of the soldier. No,
It's,
the equipment also has a stomach. No, it's a guzzler for fuel. It needs spare parts. It needs sustenance. That is also the stomach of the equipment. Now, if you don't have any logistic uh, chain available, supply chain available to provide sustenance for this equipment, how do you plan to fight the war? He, Jan Shankar is from artillery. He will realize that the RT guns are guzzlers for shells.
it's,
If you do not have a supply chain to give you that kind of ammunition, what fighting are you going to do? How will you fight? You may have all the beautiful equipment. अल्टीमेटली वही है ना कि अगर राइफल में एम्यूनिशन नहीं है तो वो तो लाठी है.
लाठी है, डंडा है, डंडा.
And the
So
point which we had made in one of our talk shows, both of us, on military technology. Military technology at the tactical level is only should be only that which helps you win the war, not the hype technology you bring there which Bhoop Singh doesn't know how to use. Then you are done for.
yeah, that's something which people have to understand, right? So don't go by the gloss which is shown. Facts on ground are far different. Now, this is another interesting question. China is producing more high quality papers in hypersonic AI quantum than USA. Why then? Why is then China absorption of technology poor?
पेपर तो कहीं से भी कट पेस्ट करके मैं डाल दूंगा,
Okay.
मेरी सोच है क्या? Simple thing.
Yeah.
Papers
China
I can,
produces. Yeah.
so I
Go
can
ahead.
keep producing those papers and say that
Yeah.
ye hai. Have I understood? So that is where, so okay, the scientist has produced. Absorption has to be where it is deployed. That man also has to understand. Has he understood? So there is a big gap. No?
Back. Yeah.
Even if you say, if I take your word कि okay, high quality paper आ गया, तो किसने किया था? वो scientist ने किया था, वो professor ने किया था. Professor is not the one who's fighting the battle.
Yeah. And one has to convert what's on paper to ground, and that conversion is pretty poor. Okay. Okay. Right. This is a question. Ukraine has shown that hypersonic missiles, short-range ballistic and cruise missiles are limited use on front lines. What will China use against India? Take out ALGs, ammunition depots, or whatever. How will they use?
How will they use it? Essentially, you will use it to take out your ALGs, your airfields, your ammunition depots, command centers, choke points. That's how you do it. Don't compare it with Ukraine. Ukraine, where is a flowing battle that is taking place? Today, it is like the front line on your western front of First World War. 5 gaj aage बढ़ गए, 5 yards I have gone here, 1 kilometer I have gone here. That is what you were doing in the First World War. War of attrition and grinding between each other. There is no flowing movement like Second World War. That is why these missiles and all. See, a missile by itself achieves nothing unless it is a maneuver by fire. You use the fire, that there has to be a maneuver force to make use of the situation that that fire has created. If you have no maneuver force or you're doing no maneuvering, what will you do with that fire? You destroy something, he'll recreate it some other place. So it's a combination. The war which we are talking of, where these missiles and all be used, is maneuver by fire. That is what it is today, these days. When you say effect-based operations, when you say these high rates of fire to suppress or degrade or destroy the enemy, that is not adequate by itself. The maneuver force has to reach the place and the objective that you want to secure. And that is where these people come in, and you mop up all these people. आप वो तो कर ही नहीं रहे हो. So what lesson are you going to take from Ukraine war?
Yeah.
Nothing. We are not fighting First World War.
Yeah, I think we've covered most of the questions. A lot of the other questions are repetition of what has come already. Uh, I'd like to thank General Rajiv Narayanan for coming up with this. And let me tell you at the end, why did I come up with this? When I saw the Tianglang, mishap, the first thing which came to me is that look, this is the tail end of a whole lot of other mishaps which have happened, which we need to put together and put it across to all of you. And that's why I straight away reached out to General Narayanan to put his views across. Overall, you have to go to that old adage, an empty vessel makes a lot of noise. So China is largely an empty vessel which is making a lot of noise. And one of these days, this vessel is going to crack. I have no doubt about it. And the rate at which is happening, it is pretty fast. Okay, and one doesn't have to really worry too much about the quality of the Chinese weaponry or the quality of their soldiers and their organization, everything. One has to keep track how bad they are. That's the way I look at it. And if you see overall, I think the Indian armed forces have realized this very well. You know, just to take it from what General Narayanan said, our posture over the past 4 years has shifted from the defensive to the offensive. And this is something which people have to understand. It is not without reason, it is not without logic, it is not without understanding the PLA. This is what I had to say. Rajiv, you conclude and then we'll say Jai Hind.
Huh. Basically, the whole problem with the Chinese had that for the last decade plus, we have been talking about a two and a half front for ourselves. Today, created by the northern and western neighbors. Today, both, firstly, the western neighbor has got a two and a half front himself. So he doesn't know what to do. So conventionally, he is not ready to take you on. The two and a half front for the Chinese have been created by Xi Jinping himself. He's become aggressive all along the eastern front, and which is quite long, his eastern seaboard, and all along the LAC, and created problems for himself with the Russians when he released that map. And the Russians made a statement that they won't hesitate to use the nuclear weapons if it comes to war with China. So today he has depleted himself so much that he can only be defensive. If he has to go offensive against Taiwan, he is also now realizing that it's going to be a suicide thereafter, not just for the PLA, for the CPC itself. It will be thank you chapter thereafter for the CPC. But he has to keep up because he has painted himself into a corner. Against India, why do you think he's sending you peace overtures?
Yeah, repeatedly.
He has clearly said, Abhi bhi, our EAM has clearly said, go back to April 2020, then we will talk. Not before that. So he realizes, like I told you, he has nothing to fight against India. सब तो डिप्लॉय हो गए, एक कोर से आप क्या लड़ लोगे पहाड़ में? Mountains just don't eat up the guzzle troops.
Yeah.
What will you do with one corps? Nothing. And he knows that there are 3 corps available here. If push comes to shove, even the 4th corps may go there because the defensive formations are more than capable of sorting out Pakistan themselves. They have adequate reserves with themselves to sort him out. अगर चारों पहुंच गए वहां पे, he's over.
Yeah.
I don't need to go to Han heartland, but Tibet and Xinjiang fall. Then what does he do?
Yeah, I think that puts everything in perspective. India is far more stronger than what we normally imagine. Right? With this, I'll conclude. Thank you. Good evening and Jai Hind to all of you.
Jai.